Now that we have completed everything about for loops, we have known about range functions, we have known about nested loops, we have known about how an loop is executed. In this section, we are going to start with while loops. With the while loop, we can execute a set of statements as long as as long as the condition that is recurring it is true. The while statement in Python is one of the most general ways to perform iteration. A while statement will repeatedly execute a single statement or group of statements as long as the condition is true. The reason is called a loop is because the code statements are looped. Okay. Now that we have known about the general definition of while loop, we are going to look through an example of it. Now, just for a point, you should be remembering out that we are calling or the concept as loop because the code statements are looped through over and over again until the condition no longer met. As we could see in our first section where we discuss about the flow chart, how it is executing up. Now, let's look into this example. So I have an initialization. Okay, let's start with this as an initialization. Initially I is equal to 1. Then while this is the condition, I is less than 6. While I is less than 6, print I. And then there is an increment or decrement operator. Okay, so I have an initialization, I have a condition, I have some statements, and then there's an increment or decrement. I is getting increased by 1. So initially I is 1. It is checking, is 1 less than 6? Yes, 1 is less than 6. So let me write the print place over here. So over here it will be printed 1. Now again I is increased to 2. Same thing, it's gonna see that 2 is less than 6. So it's gonna print 2, increase to 3. Gonna print 3, then 4, 5, 4, 5. Now after 5 it has printed 5. I is increased to 6. Now that when it goes back in this place and checks, is 6 less than equal to 6? No. So it will just get out of the loop. Okay. So from here it will get out of the loop. Out. So now let's have a quick recap on how the execution is happening. Okay. So from initially I is equal to 1, then I'm checking out the condition. So let's write here 1. I'm checking out the condition. From here I am moving down. Okay. So print I equal to 1. I printed out I equal to 1. Then from here I plus equal to 1. So now I value is 2. Now from here it will be going back to the condition. It will check, is I less than 6? Yes, I is less than 6. Then the execution pathway will be the same as the first iteration. It will move into the next line, again into the next line. After that it will increase I value to 3 after displaying 2. Now from here it will again go back to the condition, that is while condition. It will check if the condition is true. Then again it will move down successively. Now one thing to remember, that we have to increment I or else the loop will continue forever doing. So let's jump into Jupyter Notebook to view all of these in our code segments. Now I'm not going to create a new notebook file for this. I'm going to use back our old notebook file, that is the loops prac notebook file. And in this I'm going to make this section as while loop. Now let's change into markdown. Okay, for changing it to markdown, you just have to move to navigation mode and press M. Okay, markdown cells are just for displaying or making notes or making comments. Okay. Now let's start with while loop. The general syntax was something like this: initialization, while, condition, then statement, and then increment, decrement. Okay, now let's look into one of the example. So the example we did in our presentation session, that was I is equal to 1, and then while condition. So let's say while I is less than 6, statement is print I, and then I will be increasing I plus equal to 1. So let's execute it out. So I will be getting all the numbers from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what is happening over here? So initially I value is equal to 1. Then I'm checking 1 is less than 6. I'm printing I. Then incrementing I. I value gets to 2. And then I'm gonna again go back to the condition, check the same thing, move down. As we have discussed in the presentation round, where the flow has been always successively going down, 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 and when the condition is true, then it will check out the condition is true, again move down, again check the condition, move down, execute the statements, move down. It will occur until your condition is over. You can do some of the operations over here itself. So let's say I want to print something like this, print, I'm going to use f string, print, let's say I into I, or I into, let's say 2 stable, I is equal to, is equal to, I'm going to take I into 2, and let's close it. So I into 1 into 2 is 2, 2 into 2 is 4. See, let's change it to 11. So I'll get the table of 1 to 20, the 2 stable. So that is how we can start with the code. You can just change out the position over it if you are comfortable with that. So 2 into 1 is 2, 2 into 2 is 4, 2 into 3 is 6. So that is one of the ways how you can create out and table. Again, you can use for loops for this, you can use the range function, and things will be much faster over there. Now, one more thing we have in this is we can have else execution over here itself. So let's copy the same code over here, and after this, I'm going to write after the iteration gets over, it will be moving into the else block. Else, let's print the table is over. So that is how it will look. So I have something like this. This is the table that has been executing from the while block. After the while block has been completed, it will jump back to the else block, and whatever you have written out, whatever statements are written out in while block, in the else block, it will be successively executed. So we have a lot of new questions over here in the homework part. This is the loops. This is the loops notes that we are having. It is having everything that you need, all the theoretical part, all some of the examples that we haven't already discussed or we have discussed, then the range function, then the while loop. Okay, so you can go through all of these. Let's execute this code. Let's copy it out, paste it over here, and try to execute it. So now we can see that initially x value is 0, while 0 is less than 0. I'm going to print x is currently 0. X is still less than 0, adding 1 to x. Now incremented to x. So we are adding 1, again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing what we have done in a much more uh, commentable manner. And at the end, after this has been executed, that is after it has reached to 9, it will say all done. So that's it for while loop. Before ending this section of loops, the last thing that we are left with is loop control statements. So in our next video, we are going to discuss about loop control statements.